Have you ever felt like time is playing tricks on you? Like every second is a reminder of something you can't quite grasp? Well, my friend Alex had an experience that turned their world upside down, all because of a simple kitchen timer. I'm sharing this story not just to give you chills, but to make you think about how we perceive time and the moments that define us. It's a tale of mystery, fear, and ultimately, enlightenment. A wild ride that starts with a single beep and spirals into something you'd never expect. So, sit back and let me take you into Alex's kitchen, where every tick and talk unveils a new layer of reality. Alex was a passionate chef, the kind of person who could turn a handful of ingredients into a symphony of flavors. Their kitchen was a haven, a cozy space filled with the clatter of pots and the hum of creativity. At the heart of it all was a vintage kitchen timer, a relic from their grandmother's era. It wasn't one of those sleek digital gadgets, it was mechanical, with a loud, rhythmic tick and a bell that could wake the dead. Alex adored it, not just for its charm but for its precision, a throwback to a time when cooking was an art of patience and instinct. One chilly evening, Alex was knee-deep in preparations for a dinner party. The counters were a chaos of chopped herbs and simmering sauces, the air thick with the scent of rosemary and garlic. They twisted the timer to 30 minutes, letting the sauce bubble gently, and lost themselves in the dance of cooking. The ticking filled the room, steady and familiar, but as it droned on, Alex felt an odd prickle on the back of their neck, like someone was standing just out of sight, watching. They brushed it off as nonsense. Kitchens get warm, eyes play tricks, right? When the timer finally shrieked, its sharp beep cut through the air like a knife. Alex reached to silence it, but as their hand hovered over the dial, the room shifted. The lights didn't flicker, exactly, but everything seemed dimmer, the shadows stretching a little too long. They squinted, scanning the kitchen. Nothing out of place, just the stove, the sink, the neatly stacked dishes. Probably just fatigue, they told themselves, shaking it off and stirring the sauce. But it wasn't a one-off. The next time the timer rang, Alex was pulling bread from the oven. That same chill crawled up their spine, sharper this time, and out of the corner of their eye, they caught it, a shadow sliding across the wall, quick and silent, like a figure darting past. Their pulse kicked up, but when they spun around, the kitchen was empty. Steam curled from the pots. The bread sat golden on the rack. Maybe it was the heat warping the light, they reasoned, though the explanation felt flimsy. They pressed on, determined to keep the night on track. Guests would be arriving soon, and a chef doesn't let a little spookiness derail a perfect meal. As they chopped vegetables with practiced speed, their mind wandered to their YouTube channel, cooking videos that had taken off lately, drawing more viewers every week. It's amazing how fast it's growing, Alex thought, a flicker of pride cutting through the unease. Maybe I should remind everyone to subscribe if they haven't already. But before the idea could settle, the timer blared again, signaling the roast was ready. This time, Alex didn't just feel it, they saw it. They turned toward the timer, and there, framed in the doorway, stood a figure. A woman, faint and shimmering like a mirage, her old-fashioned dress hanging stiffly, her eyes locked on Alex with a gaze that pierced right through them. Their breath caught, hearts slamming against their ribs. They blinked hard, and she was gone. The doorway empty once more. The timer's echo faded into silence. What was that? Alex whispered, voice trembling in the quiet. They'd never bought into ghost stories or late-night paranormal shows, but this was no trick of the mind. Their hands shook as they plated the roast, the memory of those eyes burning into them. Stress, maybe? Too many late nights perfecting recipes? But the excuse didn't stick. The dinner party rolled on, and Alex played the part, smiling, serving, chatting with guests, but every time the timer sounded, their stomach twisted. Each beep felt like a summons, a call they couldn't ignore. They caught themselves glancing at doorways, half expecting that ghostly stare to return. By the time the last guest waved goodbye, Alex was drained, the kitchen a mess of dirty dishes and lingering questions. Alone now, they sank into a chair, staring at the timer on the counter. Its ticking was relentless, a metronome to their racing thoughts. That little device, once a trusted ally, now felt like a stranger, or worse, a messenger. Alex knew they couldn't let it go. Whatever was happening, whatever that beep unleashed, they had to face it. Time, it seemed, wasn't just counting down, it was counting up to something, and they were caught in its grip. This was only the start, a first step into a maze they couldn't yet see. The kitchen, once their refuge, was now a stage, and the timer was pulling the strings. Alex sat slumped in the chair, the weight of the evening pressing down on them like a heavy, suffocating blanket. The kitchen, once a sanctuary of warmth and creativity, now felt alien, its shadows stretching into menacing shapes that seemed to whisper secrets just out of reach. The dinner party had ended hours ago, leaving behind a mess of dirty dishes and an unsettling silence. Yet, the timer remained on the counter, its steady tick-tock cutting through the stillness like a heartbeat that refused to fade. Determined to shake off the unease that clung to them like a second skin, Alex stood and approached the timer. It was an old-fashioned mechanical device, the kind that required winding, a relic from a time long past. Alex picked it up, turning it over in their hands. The metal was cool against their skin, and the dial was worn smooth from years of use, each groove a testament to countless moments measured and meals prepared. It seemed ordinary, yet after the strange occurrences, the flickering lights, the glimpse of a ghostly figure, it felt anything but. As Alex examined it, their fingers brushed against the base, and they noticed something etched into the surface. It was faint, almost invisible unless you knew to look for it. Squinting in the dim light, Alex made out the words, "Time is the fire in which we burn." A shiver ran down their spine, as if an icy finger had traced its way along their back. The phrase was hauntingly familiar, though Alex couldn't place it. Was it a quote from a poem? A philosopher? Its presence on a kitchen timer was jarring, transforming the mundane into something ominous. Why would someone carve such a cryptic message into an everyday object? Curiosity piqued, Alex tilted the timer, inspecting it more closely. There, along the edge, was a small seam, barely noticeable, like a secret begging to be uncovered. With trembling fingers and a bit of effort, Alex pried it open, revealing a hidden compartment that had lain undisturbed for decades. Dust puffed out, and Alex coughed, waving it away. Inside was a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age and fragile as a dried leaf. Alex carefully unfolded it, revealing a photograph. It was a black and white image of a woman in an old-fashioned dress, long skirt, high collar, standing in a kitchen that looked strikingly similar to Alex's own. The cabinets were the same dark wood, the tiled floor an identical pattern. The woman's face was stern, her eyes piercing even through the faded photograph, as if she could see Alex across the years. Alex's heart skipped a beat, a jolt of recognition mixed with dread. This was the woman they had seen earlier that night, the ghostly figure in the doorway, fleeting yet unforgettable. But who was she, and why was she tied to this timer? Turning the photograph over, Alex saw a handwritten note in elegant, looping script. Eleanor, 1923. Eleanor. The name echoed through Alex's mind, stirring memories long buried. Their great-grandmother had been named Eleanor, a formidable woman, known for her strict adherence to schedules and her passion for cooking. This timer must have belonged to her, a cherished tool in her meticulous life. Alex could almost picture her now, standing at the stove, winding the timer with precision, her apron dusted with flour. Alex's grandmother had often spoken of Eleanor, her voice a mix of admiration and unease. She was obsessed with time, setting timers for everything, baking bread, boiling eggs, even reading books or tending the garden. Some said she was trying to outrun time itself, as if she could bend it to her will with her relentless planning. There was a rhythm to her life, a clockwork precision that bordered on the unnatural. Alex remembered the stories told around the flickering fireplace, how Eleanor's kitchen was a place of order, where every second was accounted for, every task timed to perfection. But there was a darker undercurrent to those tales, whispers passed down through the family like a chilling heirloom. Eleanor had died under mysterious circumstances, No one knew exactly how. Some claimed she had made a pact with time, trading her soul for eternal precision, a deal that went horribly wrong. Others said she had simply worked herself to death, her body collapsing under the strain of her unyielding schedule. These were dismissed as superstition, old wives' tales to spook the children. Yet now, holding the timer and staring at Eleanor's photograph, Alex felt the weight of those stories pressing in. As if responding to their thoughts, the timer began to tick louder, the sound reverberating through the kitchen like a drumbeat. Alex glanced down, startled. They hadn't said it. The dial rested at 0, yet the ticking grew more insistent, a mechanical pulse that refused to be ignored. Panic rose like bile in their throat. Alex grabbed the timer, twisting the dial desperately, but it wouldn't budge. The ticking mocked them, relentless, a reminder of something they couldn't grasp, a truth slipping through their fingers like sand. Then, faintly at first, Alex heard whispers, soft, like voices carried on a distant breeze. They strained to listen, the hairs on their necks standing on end. Words emerged from the murmur. Time, fire, burn. The inscription, repeated like a ghostly mantra, sent a chill through their bones. The room grew colder, the air thickening with an unseen presence that pressed against Alex's skin. Their breath came in short, sharp gasps, visible in the sudden frost that enveloped the kitchen. The light flickered, casting jagged shadows across the walls. Slowly, with dread pooling in their stomach, Alex turned around. There, in the doorway, stood the ghostly figure of Eleanor. She was more solid now, her form wavering like a mirage in desert heat. Her old-fashioned dress hung heavy, the fabric rippling as if caught in an unfelt wind. Her eyes locked onto Alex's, filled with a mixture of sorrow and urgency, a silent plea from beyond the grave. Eleanor raised a hand, pointing at the timer with a finger that seemed both corporeal and ethereal. Her lips moved, but no sound escaped. Yet, Alex felt her voice in their mind, faint and resonant. You must understand, time is not what it seems. Alex stood frozen, unable to move or speak, their body paralyzed by a cocktail of fear and fascination. The ticking swelled, filling their ears, their mind, their very being, until it was the only reality they knew, a deafening rhythm that drowned out the world. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the ticking stopped. The room warmed, the chill dissipating like a fading dream. Eleanor vanished, leaving nothing but the echo of her presence and the photograph clutched in Alex's trembling hand. Alex stumbled back, collapsing into the chair, their legs buckling beneath them. Their mind raced, a whirlwind of questions and half-formed fears. What had just happened? Was Eleanor trying to warn them, to protect them from some unseen danger? Or was she trapped, bound to the timer in some eternal limbo, unable to move on? One thing was undeniable. The timer was no mere kitchen tool. It was a key to something deeper, something that transcended time itself, a mystery woven into the fabric of Alex's family, waiting to be unraveled. The photograph, the inscription, Eleanor's words, they were pieces of a puzzle Alex couldn't yet comprehend. Taking a shaky breath, Alex set the timer back on the counter, its silence now as unsettling as its ticking had been. They knew they couldn't ignore this, couldn't dismiss it as a trick of the mind. The truth was out there, buried in the past, and Alex was determined to find it, no matter how terrifying it might be. The journey had just begun, and time, it seemed, was not on their side. Alex woke the next morning with a sense of purpose, though the unease from the previous night clung to them like a shadow. The kitchen, bathed in soft morning light, seemed almost normal again. The vintage timer sitting quietly on the counter, its dial at 0. But Alex knew better now. It was no ordinary object. It was a link to their past, to their great-grandmother Eleanor, and to something far more mysterious and potentially dangerous. Determined to understand what was happening, Alex decided to visit their grandmother, the one who had passed down the stories about Eleanor. If anyone could shed light on the timer's significance and Eleanor's life, it would be her. Their grandmother lived in a quaint cottage on the outskirts of town, surrounded by a garden that seemed to bloom out of season. As Alex approached, they saw her through the window, sitting in her favorite armchair knitting. The sight was comforting, a stark contrast to the dread gnawing at Alex. "Grandma, I need to talk to you about something," Alex began after the usual pleasantries. They hesitated, unsure how to broach the subject without sounding unhinged. "What is it, dear?" their grandmother asked, her eyes sharp and perceptive despite her age. "It's about great-grandma Eleanor and that old kitchen timer," Alex said, pulling the timer from their bag and placing it on the table. Their grandmother's expression shifted, a flicker of something, fear, perhaps, crossing her face before she masked it with a smile. "Oh, that old thing. It's been in the family for ages. What about it?" Alex took a deep breath and recounted the strange events. The ghostly figure, the hidden compartment, the photograph, and Eleanor's warning that time is not what it seems. As they spoke, their grandmother's face grew pale, her hands trembling slightly. "I always knew there was something off about that timer," she murmured, almost to herself. Eleanor was obsessed with it. She used it for everything, not just cooking. She timed her reading, her gardening, even her conversations. It was like she was trying to control every second of her life. But why? Alex pressed. What was she so afraid of? Their grandmother sighed, looking out the window as if searching for answers in the garden. Eleanor believed that time was alive, in a way. She thought it could be bargained with, manipulated. There were rumors that she had found a way to cheat time, to extend her life beyond its natural span. But it came at a cost. What kind of cost? Alex asked, a chill running down their spine. "No one knows for sure," their grandmother replied. But she became increasingly paranoid, convinced that something was after her, something that wanted to collect on the debt she owed. And then, one day, she was found dead in her kitchen, the timer ringing beside her. The official cause was a heart attack, but there were whispers that it was something else, something unnatural. Alex felt a knot tighten in their stomach. "Do you think the timer had something to do with it?" Their grandmother nodded slowly. "I think it was more than just a timer to her. It was a symbol of her pact, whatever that was. And now, it seems, it's reaching out to you." "But why me?" Alex asked, frustration creeping into their voice. "What does it want?" "I don't know," their grandmother admitted. "But you need to be careful. If Eleanor is trying to warn you, there must be a reason. Maybe she's trying to protect you from making the same mistake she did." Alex left their grandmother's house with more questions than answers, but also with a lead. Their grandmother had mentioned that Eleanor kept a diary, stored in the attic along with other family heirlooms. If Alex could find that diary, perhaps it would reveal more about Eleanor's relationship with time and the timer. Back home, Alex climbed into the dusty attic, rummaging through boxes until they found a small, leather-bound book with Eleanor's name embossed on the cover. The pages were brittle, the ink faded, but the words were still legible. As Alex began to read, they were drawn into Eleanor's world, a world where time was both a friend and a foe. She wrote about her experiments with time, her attempts to stretch minutes into hours, to slow the passage of days. At first, it seemed like a harmless obsession, but as the entries progressed, a sense of dread permeated the pages. "I fear I have gone too far," one entry read. "The timer no longer obeys me. It ticks when it shouldn't, and I hear voices in the silence between the ticks. They whisper of debts unpaid, of time stolen that must be returned." Alex's hands shook as they turned the page, the words blurring before their eyes. Suddenly, the timer on the counter began to tick, loud and insistent, even though it hadn't been set. The air grew cold, and the light in the attic dimmed, casting long shadows across the floor. Then, Alex saw her, Eleanor, standing at the far end of the attic, her ghostly form more defined than before. She looked directly at Alex, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and urgency. "You must understand," her voice echoed in Alex's mind. "Time is not a river. It is a fire, and we are the fuel. I tried to control it, but I only fed the flames." Before Alex could respond, the scene shifted. The attic dissolved, and Alex found themselves in Eleanor's kitchen, watching as she frantically adjusted the timer, her face etched with fear. The timer rang, and Eleanor clutched her chest, collapsing to the floor as ghostly whispers grew louder, enveloping her in a cacophony of ticking clocks. Alex snapped back to the present, gasping for breath, the diary slipping from their hands. The timer had stopped, the attic silent once more. But the vision had left an indelible mark. Alex now understood that Eleanor had indeed made a pact with time, and it had cost her everything. As they sat there, trying to process what they had seen, Alex realized that the timer was not just a relic. It was a conduit, a bridge between the living and the dead, between the past and the present. And somehow, Alex was now entangled in its web. But there was more to uncover. If Eleanor had made a pact, what was the nature of that agreement? And why was the timer now targeting Alex? Were they destined to repeat Eleanor's mistakes, or could they find a way to break the cycle? With a newfound resolve, Alex picked up the diary and the timer, determined to find the answers. Little did they know, the true horror was yet to come, and time was running out. Alex sat at the kitchen table, the diary splayed open before them, its pages brimming with Eleanor's frantic handwriting. The vintage kitchen timer sat nearby, silent yet ominous, like a predator biding its time. The vision in the attic still haunted Alex, the horrifying glimpse of Eleanor's death, tied inextricably to the timer now in their hands. Understanding the past was a start, but Alex knew they had to dig deeper to avoid sharing Eleanor's grim fate. The diary's final entries were chaotic, the ink smudged as if Eleanor had been writing in a panic. One passage leapt out. "I have found a way to reverse it, to undo the pact. But the price is steep, and I fear I lack the courage. If only I had more time." Alex's pulse raced. A way to reverse it? Could this be their salvation from the timer's curse? They pored over the diary, desperate for more, but the subsequent pages were blank. Eleanor's story cut short, as though time had slipped through her fingers. Frustration clawed at Alex. They needed more, but where could they look? Then, a spark of recollection. Eleanor had often consulted a local historian, Mr. Hargrove, about the town's past. Perhaps he held a piece of the puzzle. Alex unearthed Mr. Hargrove's number in an old address book nestled within the diary. After a quick call, he agreed to meet them at the Town Historical Society, a creaky building stuffed with artifacts of bygone days. Stepping inside, Alex inhaled the stale aroma of ancient paper and polished wood. Mr. Hargrove, a thin man with owlish glasses and a tweed jacket, greeted them with a quizzical smile. "You're Eleanor's great-grandchild, eh?" She was a force, always chasing after clocks, timers, anything that tracked time. "Did she ever talk about a pact or a deal she made?" Alex asked, struggling to mask their urgency. Mr. Hargrove's smile wavered, giving way to unease. "So you've heard whispers." Eleanor was obsessed with the Chronos Pact, a local legend about bargaining with time itself for extra hours, days, even years, at a terrible cost. "What cost?" Alex pressed. "It depends on the tale," Mr. Hargrove said, fidgeting with his glasses. "Some say your soul, others your memories, or even your capacity for love. It's a fable, really, a warning against meddling with time." A shiver ran through Alex. But Eleanor believed it was real, didn't she? She thought she could cheat death. Mr. Hargrove nodded gravely. "She did. She spent years chasing it, convinced she could stretch her life. Then suddenly she stopped visiting. Not long after, I learned she'd died." Alex leaned in, voice taut. "Did she ever mention reversing it? Undoing the pact?" The historian's eyes widened. "Reverse it? That's unheard of in the stories. The pact's meant to be final. But if Eleanor discovered something, it'd be in her notes." Alex's hope flickered. Her diary hints at a way, but she didn't finish it. Mr. Hargrove rubbed his chin. "There was one thing. Eleanor fixated on a clockmaker from a century ago. He supposedly built a device to control time, but it was destroyed, and he vanished mysteriously. She might have been trying to replicate it." Alex's thoughts whirled. A time-manipulating device? Could the timer be that invention or a fragment of it? They thanked Mr. Hargrove and hurried home. Mind abuzz. Back in the kitchen, Alex scrutinized the timer, hunting for clues. They spotted a faint inscription on its base, crafted by H.W. 1898. H.W., the clockmaker? Alex's excitement surged. If this was his creation, it might unlock the pack's secrets. But then, the timer stirred, ticking softly at first, then accelerating into a chaotic rhythm. The lights flickered, and a chill swept through the room. Alex froze as Eleanor's ghost materialized, more vivid than before, her face etched with despair. "You must find the clockmaker's journal," her voice reverberated in Alex's skull. "It holds the key to breaking the pact. But beware, time's fire burns fiercely, and it will devour you if you falter." Before Alex could respond, the vision morphed. A shadowy figure loomed over Eleanor's dying form, the timer ringing shrilly. The figure reached down, and Eleanor's body dissolved into smoke, sucked into the timer. Alex jolted back to the present, breathless. The timer fell silent, but the shadowy figure's image lingered, chilling them anew. Was it time itself, come to claim its toll? And was it now stalking Alex? Resolved to end this, Alex rummaged through the attic, seeking the clockmaker's journal. After hours of sifting through dusty crates, they unearthed a slim, leather-bound book stamped with H.W. Hands shaking, Alex opened it. Pages brimmed with clockwork sketches and musings on time. One note stood out. Time is not a line but a web, each thread a moment, each crossing a choice. To tamper with it risks unraveling existence. Deeper in, Alex found a diagram of a device resembling the timer, labeled as a tool to bend time's flow. A stark warning followed. Once the pact is struck, the device summons the Chronos entity to claim its debt. Destroying it severs the pact, but all gained time is erased. Alex's stomach dropped. The Chronos entity, the shadowy figure. But why hadn't Eleanor destroyed the timer? What held her back? The timer erupted into loud ticks, each one echoing like a thunderclap. The air thickened, and Alex sensed a presence, a cold breath grazing their neck. Turning slowly, dread coiling within, Alex faced the doorway. There stood the shadowy figure, its form fluid like smoke, eyes glowing unnaturally. It extended a hand, beckoning. Panic paralyzed Alex. The figure advanced, the timer's ticks syncing with their racing heart. In a flash of resolve, Alex seized the timer and dashed for the back door, the figure drifting after them with eerie calm. Outside, beneath the moon's pale glow, Alex scrambled for a rock to smash the timer. As they raised it, Eleanor's voice cut through. "Wait, there's another way. The journal, find the reversal incantation." Alex wavered, rock in hand. Trust Eleanor, or was this a ruse to preserve the pact? The figure closed in, its aura suffocating. With no time to debate, Alex dropped the rock and sprinted back inside, slamming the door. The figure halted at the threshold, granting a fleeting reprieve. Alex lunged for the journal, flipping pages frantically. Near the end, in shaky script, they found it. To undo the pact, speak the words of unbinding while holding the device at midnight, when time pauses. A glance at the clock, 11:58. 2 minutes left. Clutching the timer, Alex recited the incantation, voice quivering but resolute. As midnight struck, the timer unleashed a piercing ring, and the figure wailed, a sound that rattled the house. A blinding flash erupted, then silence. When Alex's vision cleared, the timer and figure were gone. The kitchen was still, the air warm. But something was off. The photos on the walls, their life's memories, looked altered, as if time had rewritten itself. In that quiet, Alex grasped the pact's true price. Alex awoke to the cheerful chirping of birds outside their window, a sound that felt both familiar and foreign. They stretched, their muscles stiff as if they'd slept too long, and a strange disorientation settled over them like a thin fog. Blinking against the morning light filtering through the curtains, they scanned the room. Something was wrong. The photos on the wall caught their eye. One depicted a family trip to a sunlit beach, waves crashing against the shore, but Alex couldn't recall ever standing on that sand. Another showed them in a cap and gown, grinning at a graduation ceremony, yet the details, the crowd, the stage, felt alien. Frowning, Alex slid out of bed, their bare feet hitting the cool hardwood floor. They shuffled to the kitchen, a space that had become a battlefield in recent days. Their gaze darted to the counter where the vintage kitchen timer had sat, its incessant ticking a harbinger of dread. It was gone. In its place stood a simple digital timer, sleek and unremarkable, the one they'd bought years ago at a discount store. Alex's heart stuttered. What had happened last night? They closed their eyes, grasping at the threads of memory. The incantation, words stumbled over in the dark, flashed in their mind, followed by a blinding light that had swallowed the room. The timer and the Chronos entity, that shadowy figure tethered to it, had vanished. But beyond that, the details blurred, as if someone had smudged wet ink across a page. Alex grabbed their phone from the counter and checked the date. It was the same day the strange events had begun, as if the past few days had been erased, reset like a video game to an earlier save point. Curiosity mingled with unease as Alex opened their laptop and navigated to their YouTube channel. The subscriber count stared back at them, several hundred lower than they remembered. Videos they'd posted recently, ones that had gained traction during the timer's influence, were missing. A wave of disappointment crashed over them, the loss of that growth a sharp pang in their chest. But as the initial sting faded, a quieter emotion emerged: relief. The timer was gone. The nightmare was over. They were free. Questions lingered, though, gnawing at the edges of their mind. What had become of their great-grandmother, Eleanor, whose pact with time had birthed this curse? Had breaking it released her from her torment, or had it unraveled something deeper? Alex needed answers, and there was only one place to start. They drove to their grandmother's cottage, the familiar crunch of gravel under tires grounding them. Their grandmother greeted them at the door with a warm smile, her silver hair catching the sunlight. "Back so soon, dear? You were just here yesterday." Alex's stomach tightened, a cold realization creeping in. "Grandma, do you remember what we talked about last time? About the vintage timer and great-grandma Eleanor?" Their grandmother tilted her head, her brow creasing in confusion. "Timer? Oh, that old thing. I think it's up in the attic with the other family heirlooms." "Why do you ask?" The words hit Alex like a punch. The conversation they remembered, the one where their grandmother had revealed Eleanor's pact, had never happened in this timeline. Time had been rewritten, erasing the events tied to the timer's influence. Alex mumbled a vague excuse and left, their mind spinning as they drove home. They had lost something: subscribers, videos, moments of their recent past, but they had gained freedom from the pact's curse. Was that worth the trade? Back in their kitchen, Alex sought solace in routine. They decided to cook, craving the comfort of chopping vegetables and simmering sauce. They set the digital timer for a simple pasta dish, its quiet beep a stark contrast to the vintage timer's ominous chime. As they diced an onion, the rhythm of the knife against the cutting board steadied their nerves. When the timer sounded, Alex tensed instinctively, half expecting the lights to flicker or a chill to sweep through the room. But nothing happened. It was just a timer, a tool, not a tormentor. They smiled, a small, genuine curve of their lips, and felt a weight lift from their shoulders. Maybe this was the lesson, to embrace time as it was, without fear or control. As they stirred the sauce, a soft glow bloomed in the corner of the kitchen. Alex turned, and their breath caught. There stood Eleanor, her form translucent but serene, her face unlined by the anguish that had marked her in previous visions. She wore a simple dress, her hair neatly pinned, and her eyes held a peace Alex had never seen. "Alex," she said, her voice gentle, like a breeze through autumn leaves. "Thank you for breaking the pact. I am finally free to rest." Tears pricked Alex's eyes, a mix of relief and sorrow. "I'm glad, great-grandma. But what was the pact? What did you bargain for?" Eleanor sighed, her expression softening with regret. I was young and foolish, desperate to achieve more than my years allowed. I made a deal with time, or what I thought was time, to gain extra hours, days, even years. The timer was my anchor, a gift from the clockmaker H.W., but it became my prison. I lived racing against it, always counting, never truly present. In trying to extend my life, I lost the ability to live it. She stepped closer, her form shimmering like heat over pavement. When you recited the incantation, you undid my bargain. The extra time I gained was erased, and with it, the events that unfolded during those stolen years. Your timeline shifted, too, but you kept enough memory to understand. Alex nodded, piecing it together. That's why my photos are different, why my subscriber count dropped. Those things happened in the time you borrowed. Yes, Eleanor confirmed. But you, Alex, have been given a second chance. Don't repeat my mistake. Time is not a thing to be hoarded or controlled. It's a gift, each moment precious, fleeting, yours to cherish. Her words sank into Alex, heavy with truth. They thought of the sleepless nights spent chasing deadlines, the hours lost to worry over what could be instead of what was. Eleanor's life had been a cautionary tale, and Alex vowed not to follow that path. Eleanor began to fade, her edges dissolving into the air. Wait, Alex called, stepping forward. Will I see you again? She smiled, soft and bittersweet. Perhaps in memories or dreams. But my time here is done. Goodbye, Alex. Live well. And she was gone, leaving the kitchen quiet save for the bubbling of the sauce. Alex stood still, the aroma of garlic and tomatoes grounding them in the moment. They felt a closure they hadn't known they needed, a final release from the pack's shadow. In the days that followed, Alex noticed the subtle shifts in their life. Some friendships felt different, conversations they remembered now absent from this timeline. Their YouTube channel was smaller, yes, but it felt truer, built on passion, not the artificial boost of borrowed time. They uploaded a new video, a simple cooking tutorial, and watched the views trickle in. Each one felt earned, a small victory in a life reclaimed. Alex embraced this new reality, guided by Eleanor's wisdom. They cooked with intention, savoring the sizzle of oil and the rhythm of stirring. They laughed with friends, lingered over coffee, let moments unfold without rushing to the next. Time, they realized, was not an enemy to conquer or a resource to stretch thin. It was a companion, a quiet presence on life's journey, urging them to be here, now. And so, the story of the vintage kitchen timer ended, not with a bang, but with a gentle fading, a tale of horror turned to enlightenment. Alex had faced the darkness, wrestled with time's grasp, and emerged wiser, stronger, more alive. The timer was gone, Eleanor was at peace, and Alex was free to live, truly live, in the gift of each passing second.